Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 147. It's the last of England's World Cup warm-up fixtures as the boys take on Italy. We discuss the squad, the omissions and what's left in Eddie's preparations before Japan. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. It is the last big week before the World Cup kicks off. England in their final World Cup warm-up match against Italy this weekend, or Friday night in fact. You'll be pleased to know Dan will be here to discuss all of this with us now, but also for the live match, and he's here with us, as I say, right now. Hi, mate.
Hello, mate. I will be there. And do you know what? This is. I hate the fact I have to say this. This will be the first time I've actually watched the match completely live as it happens, and where I'm not working. So I'm really. It's
very disappointing, Dan. You're part of the England Rugby Pod.
I know, mate, and I'm annoyed about it. But I'd rather get it out of the way early, so hopefully things can be all set for the World Cup. But I'm looking forward to Friday night, and with that, is an interesting team selection.
It is an interesting team selection. Just before we go into the team, because I think there's quite a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, sure.
Just a few little bits of, not really admin, but just things that have been happening. We had a little message from... So, I don't know if I told you, but I put out I did tell you, in fact. I put out a little message on Twitter asking for any Argentine, American, French and Tongan fans that would fancy, joining us for either guest spotting or we'd do a little interview and slot it into an episode in the build-up to the various games. And we've had Juan Cruz Blanco from Argentina has got in touch saying he's keen. And Patrick Tipsword from the USA has got in touch saying he's keen. And we will definitely look to do something with Ben Lewis, who's emailed us. But Ben, you're an English fan. You might be living in America. But as an English fan, we want someone who's going to try to tell us that we're not going to win so that we can tell them why we are. He's reached out, said that he'd love to contribute. He's followed the pod for a while from the US, and he'd be happy to chip in. So yeah, Ben, really appreciate that, and we will definitely look to do something with you. But for this little exercise, we're looking for someone who's back in the opposition, so we can have a discussion with them before the various games. But yeah, to the guys that have been in touch, awesome, and obviously we've definitely got a couple of French listeners. We've had reviews from them in the past, so. If you're a Frenchman or woman who's keen to come and 10 minutes, half an episode, a whole episode, whatever works, get in touch. Let us know. We'd love to work with you guys. So yeah, that's at England Rugby Pod on social media or englandrugbypod@gmail.com to ping us over an email. It's an interesting one, this game, isn't it? Because, it's the last of the warm-ups. England, I think, have kind of gone from strength to strength. On paper, the games have got gradually, gradually tougher, though people would argue that's not the case. But, nevertheless, it's two kind of top-tier nations that we've played in the first three games. And then Italy, obviously, is a step down without wanting to be disrespectful to them. It is what it is. So we kind of always expected a weaker side. However, Eddie seems to be sticking to his kind of game plan of really mixing it up. A mixture of his top boys with some slightly more unknowns, and actually with this game with a few people that aren't even in the squad.
Yes, It's an interesting team section. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start with this? Because there is, like you say, there's a lot to go through.
Well, let's just start. Let's rather than reading out the team, let's just start with the team in the order that we would read it out. So, we can kind of talk about the various things, the connotations, what it means as we go through. So, up front, Marler, George, Cole. Probably no major surprises there with Cowan, Dickey, Genge, and Sinclair on the bench. So, between the six of them, other than Mako Vunipola, who's obviously injured but supposedly going to be absolutely fine, that's your sort of, you're picking your starting 15 from that, right? Not your 15, obviously.
No.
Your front three are being picked from there because you're starting with George, Sinclair.
From that
line,
yeah.
So George, Sinclair, and then obviously Mako ideally starts, but you'd have probably Marler or Genge.
I think you'd probably go Mako, George, and Sinks.
Yeah. So I'm saying
No, yeah.
With Mako currently injured, if it wasn't, if you would go Mako, George, and Sinclair to start, but if Mako's unavailable, you'd go with Marler or Genge, and they're the two involved on Friday. So
exactly, yeah.
No surprises there. Strong front row. Happy with that. Launchbury Laws in the second row. This is probably the first thing. I've been calling for ages. I really wanted to see Courtney Laws playing where he should be playing in the second row because he is a formidable player for England. But I feel like he's just been a little bit out of position. Like, yes, he can cover 6, but in my opinion, cover being the operative word at international level.
I think so. And actually, I'm quite glad to see these two in the row because for me, these two are currently our second choice, second row, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think I'd probably currently start with... I think I'd definitely start at the moment.
Atoje and Cruz are the two front runners at the moment, I think, without question. I mean, Atoje is indispensable, probably makes a world 15. Definitely does in our opinion, but probably in most people's opinion. And Cruz is just looking huge. Like, literally just massive.
Yeah, what's he been on? He really... I mean, he's always been a big lump, hasn't he? But now he's looking like an absolute just tower block. But great. But he doesn't seem to have... Where Cruz has worked is he doesn't seem to have slowed down with it. It doesn't seem to have made him lethargic. So he's been playing really well. Launchbury Lords are two world-class second rows. Any team in the world would be happy to have them. It is the awesome foursome.
We've got the awesome foursome, the Kamikaze Kids, and then there was some name given to Farrell Ford. I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember, something like that. Mini twins or whatever it might be. But it's with these two. So one question I've got for these two, and this question will probably come up quite a lot in different positions. Can these two oust the other two as a starter? If an amazing game, if Launchbury Lords has an absolute blinding game, can they put themselves as top pick for one of the second row positions?
I mean, I think never say never because I think they're up there. But honestly, no. I think Atoje. The thing is, I think if you're talking a World Cup final, starting 15, because I think this is the other thing to bear in mind is we're going to have different starting 15s throughout this World Cup.
Of course.
So I think a World Cup final being played tomorrow. Well, no, not tomorrow. Being played next week sometime. These two have just had an awesome game against Italy. I think you still have to go with Atoje, Cruz. Apart from anything else, they've had awesome games between them against Wales and Ireland. Yeah. So I think that speaks volumes. But you've got 4 people there who are so interchangeable and are all so strong at the moment that I think these two are competing for who is going to be on the bench, and potentially they both could be because Laws might be on the bench as cover for the back row. But I think in an ideal world with everybody fit, you're probably looking at these two as one of them is going to be on the bench. And unfortunately, I think Laws has the advantage of being that back row cover as well. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
Even if that's the case, this is a 31-man squad for a reason over 7 games or whatever it is to win the World Cup. And Launchbury's even if he isn't part of a theoretical World Cup final 15 or 2023, he's going to be vitally important at various stages of this competition anyway. And there's no reason why they can't play themselves into contention to be part of a 23 for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see these two. I'm excited to see these two sort of out there at their best. But we kind of know what we're getting with them. The back row, Curry, Wilson, I like. But let's move on to it because you and I spoke about this and you weren't happy. Billy starting again.
Just before you do, because it was easy to skip over it. Curry, Wilson, I agree. I like it. But he's playing Curry at 6 and Wilson at 7.
Yeah, that...
We know
it's been named like that. Do we think it will line up like that?
I've seen various different connotations through the various official channels, and it looks like he is playing Curry at 6 and Wilson at 7 intentionally. It's been suggested by a few people on Twitter that it's about putting them in uncomfortable positions, and it's still part of the kind of testing process. But to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you don't really need Curry to be the 6 cover when you've got Wilson. But when you haven't, sure, but you've also got Ludlam. Likewise, you don't need Wilson to be the 7 cover when you've got Curry and Underhill, unless they both get injured. So I guess you might argue that he's trying to just get that third option. But I just don't see them playing. I don't see Curry playing the game like a 6 and Wilson playing the game like a 7. I think they'll play their normal roles just from the other sides of the scrum.
And also, like you say, if there's an injury, suggestion to me would be Kovacic, bearing in mind he's on the bench and being called up, would be the one called in. And I would put him at 7 ahead of Wilson.
But Kovacic isn't in the 31, and we're talking, and we're not talking replacement injury. We're talking, temporary injury.
Oh, okay.
I think replacement injury, you don't need a third choice cover if you're going to have a complete replacement. This is about being able to make changes on the day because of something that happens during the game, or make changes because somebody's injured but they'll be good for the following week.
Yeah, okay, no,
so
fair enough.
I think on that to me, that's the only thing I can think of as to why you would play them the wrong way around.
Yeah.
I guess depending on how things are going, there's the option to switch it at any moment. But it's giving Curry a little bit more time at 6 because when he fancies the Curry Underhill combo, Curry is the 6 out of the two of them. And obviously Wilson's had very little time in the warm-ups, so he needs to get on. So maybe that's what's made this decision. Maybe it's he wanted Tom Curry at 6, and so the question becomes, who does he play at 7? And Wilson hasn't had a lot of game time, so maybe that's why it's the wrong way round. It's more about giving Curry time at 6 rather than giving Wilson time at 7, perhaps.
Possibly. I'm not overly concerned about that, and I have a theory, which I'll probably come on to a bit later about the sort of spare guys as such, and I mean that in the sort of nicest possible way. But I'll cover that a bit later. But so you're really unhappy about seeing Billy at 8, aren't you?
I just don't understand why. Like, it's all well and good, them saying he needs to play. There are two trains of thought here. On the one hand, there's an argument to say that he needs to be wrapped in cotton wool, put in a box and shipped off to Japan and saved probably for the knockouts because he is vitally important to England. But we have strength throughout this team, and so it's not. England's chances in this World Cup don't disappear because we haven't got Billy, but they are made significantly stronger with him. He is key. As I say, an argument for wrapping him in cotton wool. But for me, the more important thing, I think, particularly given the message that keeps coming out of the camp, that they're looking to create scenarios to give the team the opportunity to practice, in situations that they can't necessarily plan for, injuries and making changes. And the one thing we haven't seen yet is what happens at 8 if it's not Billy.
So that's where I'm most worried about this, is because I've said all along, you can't take into account a player might get injured because they might get injured at any point. But even with that in mind, there is a part of me thinking Billy's had 3 games. He doesn't need the 4th. But like you say, I think the most important point is we need to try someone else out at 8. Now, you've called up Kovacic. He would be an injury cover, so there's no point. I don't understand why you don't start Wilson at 8. Because realistically, he's the next 8. If Billy got injured in a match, Wilson's likely to be 8, assuming he's within the 23.
I mean, we've got it wrong pretty much every time we've tried to make a prediction about what's going to happen with Billy. But assuming that this time around he doesn't do the 80 minutes and we do get to see someone else playing at the back of the scrum, I'm guessing Wilson moves to 8 and Kovacic goes to 6 or 7 or whatever it will be. And for the exact reasons you've just said, Kovacic might be an 8, but he's not in the squad. So there's just no point in putting him there instead of Billy. So I wonder whether that's the plan, is that he's there just to basically fill up the gap, and Wilson will move to 8 when Billy comes off, and Kovacic will fill in either like for like with Wilson at 7 or at 6 with Curry moving back to the 7 shirt.
Yeah, I think what this has shown is one of the reasons. So there's been a lot of chat about the call up of these guys, they're not in the 31. Why are they called into the squad? I think one of the major reasons is I think England has shown their hand. If there are injuries, I don't think they're looking for replacements. If there are injuries, these are the next in line.
Yeah, for
sure.
So
it's all very well saying, stay in shape, guys, you're the next in line. But I think Eddie's thinking also, there are likely to be injuries because of the nature of the modern game. Let's beast them for a week.
Yeah.
So we know at least they're in a level of shape. And
give them a bit of match fitness, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of match fitness. Kovacic has been playing 8 and he's been playing brilliantly at 8 for Exeter. He's traditionally, or he started as a 7, and that's where I've always been a massive fan of Matt Kovacic, and I've always said I think he should play for England as a 7. That was now I actually do believe that Curry and Underhill are ahead of him as 7s, but I understand why Kovacic is there. So I think for me, I'd like to see Wilson start at 8. I'd like to see Curry and a Ludlam or someone else on the flanks with Kovacic on the bench like he is, and Kovacic to come on and have a go either as a flank or an 8, because I suspect if he gets called up, that's what it'll be for.
Yeah. Well, he's going to get a run out. That's pretty much guaranteed. I mean, interestingly, Eddie actually put it to Conor O'Shea that they should change the kind of the agreed plan for the match, and they should make it more like a football friendly, have it as a 31-man match day squad, in order to give the entire squad a kind of run out, give them all a chance. Conor O'Shea was like, "Yeah, makes total sense to me. Let's do it." World Rugby said no.
So I like the fact Eddie did that. I fully understand why, and I'd have liked to have seen that. I do actually also understand why World Rugby did say no.
I mean, it's a test match.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It impacts world rankings and things, and I suspect it cocks things up if you haven't got the right number of games under your belt and everything else. But yeah, it actually made me think, why is that why not just scrap the test match aspect of warm-ups and say exactly this, you can play your full squad. And so, if you give, 3 people in each position 25 minutes each, that surely makes more sense. It's about that the warm-ups are about getting them ready to last a World Cup.
Yeah,
I guess you do want test match practice too. So there's an argument to say that there's value. I mean, you look at what England did against Wales at Twickenham with a second string side, what they then did a week later in Cardiff, and okay, we lost, but it was a close, hard fought, not the most exciting game, but it was tough and it was under pressure, and I guess you wouldn't get that in a game where you've got a 31-man squad. So I don't know. Yeah, it's probably, I've just gone full circle.
You've gone full circle, but I understand why, because I can completely see both sides of the argument.
Yeah,
I understand why that, because let's face it, some of these games have not been played at test match level.
Well, that's exactly it. So maybe the answer
was not test match level last week.
Maybe the answer is that you say you have 4 warm-up games, 2 test matches, and 2 friendlies. And in the friendlies, you can bring your entire squad of 31 along, rolling subs type of scenario, and then the test matches are test matches, and it gives you then an opportunity to do a little bit of both. And maybe you alternate it. Maybe it's sort of friendly test match. That to me would be quite a good way of getting, not just for England, but for all teams, get them into a kind of place where they're really ready to fly out to wherever it is they're flying, obviously on this occasion Japan, and be ready to hit the ground running in a World Cup.
Yeah.
There you go, World Rugby. You obviously, World Rugby tunes in. They obviously listen to all the rugby podcasts. Of course. I'm sure we're somewhere near the top of the list. I think, that to me sounds like a good compromise.
It's a shame. I'd like to have seen the full squad available to play. I mean, Eddie said 31. I guess he wouldn't have called up those extra 3. So there's a point.
Well, he would, because don't forget he's got injuries in the 31.
Yeah,
so Noel wouldn't have been available. Slade and JJ are both, by all accounts, right on the cusp of being ready, but not quite there in time for this game. So they're unavailable.
Mako's
unavailable, so that's 4. So then you'd have your Yules, your Kovacic, your Marchant, and I guess one other.
Or you just going in for 30.
Yeah, true.
Which would be fair enough. I'd like to have seen that, but I'm not that bothered either way. Jack Noel, when you're saying injury, he's had a tough time of things, hasn't he?
He has. It's just not ideal to be in the injury situation he's in and then get
have his appendix out.
Appendicitis. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. That does sound horrendous. By all accounts, which I loved, his spirits are in really good form. He has just had surgery. I remember I never actually had my appendix out, but I had a suspected appendicitis, and I remember them talking through what that operation entails. These days, I think it's very different. I think it's done via laser surgery, so it's not quite as traumatic on the body. But even so, he has got a bit of recovery to do before I would say he's probably test match fit.
Definitely, and as good as he's been in the past, would he take somebody's place in the knockouts if it takes until then for him to be ready to play? And if so, who? Because obviously you've got Johnny May, proven. You've got Joe Cokanasiga, who's kind of not come out of nowhere, but sort of, in recent times come along and shown something pretty special in terms of what he brings to the table as a big 120 kilo second quickest man in the squad player. You've got McConaughey, who we're going to find out on Friday what it is Eddie Jones sees in him, and it's clearly something. And Eddie obviously has a pretty good success rate with finding new talent. And then you've got Anthony Watson, who obviously is playing fullback this Friday, but has been playing on the wing in the warm-ups so far and been looking really sharp. And you've got Daly, who's at fullback, but we know can play brilliantly on the wing as well. And as much as I love Jack Noel as a player, and he brings a lot of kind of flexibility apart from anything else. But he's a brilliant player. If it takes him until the knockout stages, for example, to be really fit and ready to go, is that a risk worth taking? To suddenly go, one of these guys that's kind of proven himself in the build-up to this World Cup has to take a back seat to let Jack, who hasn't had any game time, come in and take his spot.
So I think that's a really good point, because Jack Noel, let's face it, he's a rock star. He's a rock star of a player. But like you said, so are the other guys in the back three. There's a lot of rock star players there. So I guess the question is, with his recovery, and we don't know exactly how far off his recovery is. Will he have chance to get in a few games? Will he have a chance to play perhaps against the USA to have that warm-up game? If not, could his place be better served elsewhere? Could we have a third? Whichever side's missing, or could we have a third scrum half, or could we? Yeah. So bearing in mind who we have elsewhere,
or someone like a Kovacic, if he comes, especially if on Friday he rocks up and is just awesome. I mean, I wonder whether that's partly one of the reasons why Eddie Jones is playing some guys who are not in the squad, because he's actually thinking to himself, I might have to make a tough decision at the last minute. He's got a few more days to finalise the 31 if he needs to make any changes. And obviously, if it's injury-related, replacements can be made anyway. But yeah, I agree. I think I don't want to see Jack Noel miss out. But I think there have to be concerns. Like, unless they know that he's going to be ready to actually play in the next couple of games, like if he's going to be fit and healthy, ready for USA, fair enough, he misses Tonga. It's not ideal that he's missed all the warm-up games, but you're still in the group stages. There's still time for him to get some game time before the kind of crucial knockouts. But, if it's going to be another 4 or 5 weeks, I think it might be a wasted place where you'd get more value out of having someone else come in and offer cover. So it's a really tough decision that needs to be made there.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't believe we're having this conversation about Jack Noel, bearing in mind how good he is. But they must have had these conversations, right? They must have had them in the squad.
You would think so. And look, you mentioned, just moving on from this, you mentioned about the potential cover. I said about the likes of Kovacic. But actually, one of the areas that we are concerned about right now, based on what we saw against Ireland, despite the scoreline, is scrum half. Ben Youngs was frankly poor by his standards and by England's standards and by what we expect to see. Willie Hines has looked brilliant, and that's all well and good, but it's no good having one of two scrum halves, 50% of your scrum half contingent just not performing. Now, obviously, that could easily be it was a bad day at the office, and he's going to start this game, rightly so. But he has to. He's got big shoes to fill. I guess is the saying. I mean, would you agree that Ben Youngs probably has the most to prove in this game?
Would I agree? Ben Youngs has the most to prove. Yeah, I would. Yeah,
I think he has to, because Ben Youngs, we assumed, was the nailed on starter, with Willie Hines the last 20 minutes come on and add some impact. But the way that they've been playing, I don't think you can start Ben Youngs. And frankly, I say with the way they've been playing, he had one game. But
yeah, exactly.
If he's playing generally the way he played against Ireland, I don't want to see him for any part of the 80 minutes.
I feel Ben Youngs is a world-class quality player enough that even if and against Italy, yeah, a bit, because Italy can be competitive in areas, but I don't think that's now how he plays. Like we said, I think it's one game. I think Ben Youngs, I think we'll see the Ben Youngs we know and love. I
agree, but what if we don't?
If we don't, yeah, exactly. If we don't, then
Danny Care's injured, so he's not an option. Obviously,
Danny Care's injured. Whoa, what the hell? When did this happen?
Danny Care's just come out of surgery.
What a pussy! What happened to him?
You know that Twitter box that you're always banging on about.
Oh yeah.
If you took the time in 2019 to work out what it is, you would have seen that.
I feel like 2019's gone already. This might be a 2021 thing.
Okay. He's been posting pictures of his recovery with his kids and stuff. So I don't know what the injury was. But he's had surgery. He's clearly he's not in contention. That's not an option anymore. So he's not a potential replacement. So Robson or Spencer. Robson, I think, being the first choice there, right?
I would have thought so.
So the question becomes, Dan Robson, currently not in the 31, probably being told, stay kind of fit and healthy, ready to go because you're my next call-up. But, yeah, if Ben Youngs has a shocker against Italy, that's 2 on the bounce out of 2. Does a tough decision need to be made there?
Still a bit early for me. If he has a shocker against Italy, massive alarm bells. If he has a shocker against Italy, I think you've got those 2 games, the Tonga USA games, and I mean this with all due respect, but they're not the threat that the France Argentina are. I mean sure. That's just real.
But then we're stepping into territory of pretend to be injured so that you can be replaced, because you can't just replace someone because you think someone else would be better.
Well, no. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. I think Ben Youngs would have to have the worst game of his entire life, including schoolboy rugby, for him to be taken out for 31. I think over the years, he's been too integral. He is a good scrum half, and I back him.
Okay, so but so if he puts in a performance like the one against Ireland,
you're not going to let this go. Good for you.
I'm not going to let it go. Answer my question. What do we do? Like we
back him.
Hold on. Right, so against Italy, he puts in a performance the same as the one he put in against Ireland.
Yeah.
Tonga comes along, and we need to decide. We've only got 2 scrum halves, so they're both going to be involved. Who starts?
Willie Hines.
And therefore, what are you getting out of bringing on a player who's out of form for your last 20 minutes?
God, this is a tough one, isn't it? Yeah, no, you're right. I'm not arguing you, and I fully appreciate why you're asking the question.
To clarify, I don't think that he's going to have a bad game against
I think
Italy.
This is a long stretch, yeah.
I think that he's probably going to turn things around, and people will say, there's the Ben Youngs as you said, that we know and love. And it's going to put our minds at rest, and that Ben Youngs will be the starter because Willie Hines is going to offer something a bit special off the bench. But on current form, from what we've seen, Willie Hines for me is right now the kind of the premier scrum half. And if that remains the case, then I think Willie Hines has to start. But I want to know that the guy coming on can still offer some kind of impact, and I don't see that from Ben Youngs.
No.
And that's
not right now.
So therefore, if Noel's out, do you take Robson?
Out, well, if Noel's out, but that's the thing. I think we have till after this weekend to find that out.
Mm.
So short question: if Ben Youngs does seem to have completely lost form and lost his way, which again I don't believe he will, and then it turns out that Noel, just due to too much ask on the body, is going to be out, I would then be looking at scrum half as my next choice as a replacement.
I think you have to, and like you've said a few times in the last few episodes that we've done, the team with the best scrum. Well, no, that's probably making it too simple. But the team that's going to win this World Cup has to be on fire. Well, it has to be on fire at scrum half. That scrum half has to control the game from the back of the base of the scrum. And if we haven't got that, I think despite how good the rest of the team is, you're not going to get the distribution required to do the damage needed to win a World Cup.
Yeah.
Let's move on from 9 because
that was stressful.
It was stressful, but these are the questions people want answers to, Dan.
If only we had them.
What, the people?
And the answers. God, that'd be a good combination, wouldn't it?
I mean, that would make for a great podcast. Let's move on. Okay, so at 10, Owen Farrell starts at 10 for the first time in the warm-ups. Really glad that he's gone down that route. There was a moment when I was sort of saying Farrell's one of the guys that needs to be wrapped in cotton wool, but no, we need to see him at 10 because we've kind of looked at other connotations. George Ford has justified, I think, he's justified his place in the 31.
I 100% agree with that.
And I think that the Cipriani debate, it's not that it's over, but I think you can kind of, the debate probably isn't. The decision is.
No.
But I think you can kind of see that if you're behind the idea of only taking 2 fly halves, given the rest of the team, you can see why the 2 that are going are the 2 that have been picked.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I do understand that, and I understand the decision making. And actually, I think now, like we say, bearing in mind the chat we just had with scrum half, I actually think that Danny Cipriani, if there's an injury to fly half, if there's an injury to fly half, he comes in like for like. But if there's an injury, say back 3, where perhaps we don't need to recover, he's not the next in line to be called up.
No, I don't. I agree. I think there are other more important positions. But like you say, injury to fly half, that changes things. But what else do you? Here's an interesting one for you then. If Danny Cipriani did a Bentia and essentially made himself unavailable, who then? If George Ford got injured, let's say.
Is Marcus Smith next in line?
I mean, he's certainly had more exposure under Eddie, but does he go down that route with the experience that Marcus Smith has, or the lack of experience he has at this moment in time, or does he go take a punt and utilise guys that can cover and just make Owen Farrell your key man in the same way that Billy's is number 8?
I think you have Mark. I think it's a Marcus Smith. I actually think Marcus Smith has earned his dues as an international player. I don't want that to happen.
And he was awesome in the Barbars game.
He was, and we are talking sort of long way out. Danny Cipriani signed up with Gloucester. He's not going to make himself unavailable. So I think that option's sort of safe for the moment. I think Danny Cipriani wants to play for England. I want him to be playing for England again at some point, but I'm not as angry as I have been, but he's not now, because I think George Ford and Owen Farrell are 2 deserving fly halves on the squad.
Agreed.
Wow. This is getting intense.
It is getting intense. Almost as intense as the sound your washing machine's making.
Is that bloody on again? That's my bad. Do you want me to pause it? Or does it add a bit of je ne sais quoi?
It definitely adds
down to earth.
It definitely adds some I do not know what.
Nice, well played.
Is it do not know? Oh, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Fine. So moving swiftly on. The other changes that finally glad to see Watson at 15.
Yes, very, very glad to see that. Actually,
I think people need to understand this is not a hating Daly at 15.
I love Daly at 15. I've got Daly at 15.
You exactly. He's your first choice. Personally, I think Watson would be a better option at 15, if only he had a boot. But yeah, it'll be good to see him in the 15 shirt and just see what that does.
You say if only he had a boot. In fairness, you can say that about anyone in comparison to Daly.
But specifically Watson.
Yeah, specifically Watson in this case. Yeah,
yeah, and that's who I'm saying it about. But yeah, no, I'm glad to see him at 15, and I'm glad that Daly or an alternative 15 isn't on the bench. So we're going to see 80 minutes from Anthony Watson at 15. So really find out what he's made of, unless McConaughey is an option there. Because this is the other one. McConaughey's obviously back from injury, and obviously he's due to be pulled out the last minute, probably on Friday morning, because that seems to be what's happened so far. But if that doesn't happen by some miracle, he is there as a utility back, which is obviously what we thought Jack Nowell was. He can play fly half, he can play fullback, wing, centre. So he's there as very much the kind of the flexible player.
Yeah.
So I guess we potentially would see him at fullback if things weren't working out, or if Eddie wants to give him half each. Because who is the third choice fullback? If Eddie's looking to have three in every position.
Well, it probably would have been Jack Nowell.
Yeah.
Which is why that maybe Jack Nowell. No. That's out of order. The reason Jack Nowell's been given all the time in the world is because he's an absolute legend of a player.
He covers 15 positions.
He literally does. I could see him as a prop.
Yeah.
I think he's hard enough.
New breed.
Exactly, yeah, new breed. Mobile props who run the 100 in probably close to sub 11, which would be good. But the fullback thing, I think for now we can maybe rest, because I think we're okay. And if there was the chance of them both being out for like a week, so probably fairly slim. If so, you maybe call up cover.
Yeah,
and I think you can do that. I can't wait to see McConaughey.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been waiting for this for a while, and I'm quite excited just because of what Eddie has done in the past. With taking punts on people that we've all kind of gone, oh, what's this about? And then, clearly he's seen something pretty special. And no bigger call than putting someone in your 31-man squad who's uncapped. And who's only been playing the sport really for a season. Obviously, he's played variations of it at a very high level. But yeah, he's only been playing the 15-a-side professionally for one season. So yeah, really excited to see what this is all about. I hope it's not some sort of disaster, because if he has, if he happens to, he has the added pressure of, if he has a bad game, and everyone has bad games from time to time, and you could argue that better to have a bad game in the warm-ups than in the World Cup itself. But if he has a bad game, given that none of us have ever seen him play for England in the 15-a-side game, it's going to make it really tough to justify his inclusion, isn't it?
It really is. There must be enough of him, and that's
not
going to be a limited case, and there must be flexibility. But I can't wait to see him, and I'm going to stick on the positive side, and we'll worry about. Sure.
Well, he's considered a flyer, right? So we've got May on one side and him on the other. That's, to me, sounding pretty exciting.
Yeah.
If Farrell can get some quick distribution, you've obviously got Francis playing outside Farrell, so you've got a couple of playmakers in the middle to help with that. Joe Marchant is in there. We've kind of covered off why.
How much depth did we get into? I understand that. JJ's injured. There's no point putting Manu back out. And Joe Marchant, likely.
JJ Slade are both injured, but on the verge of coming back. And Manu's had a couple of runs now, and they want to give him a rest. So, to me, it's like you need someone. Sense. That will make sense. He's obviously the next in line, certainly to be a like for Manu. Interesting. I wonder whether or not, had Ben Teo not done what he did, whether or not he'd have been the man there instead of Marchant. We'll never know.
Quite possibly, yeah. No, that's a good point.
But yeah, that covers most of the team. So just quickly jumping back though, one question I do have: Charlie Ewels.
Yeah,
I don't. As one of the non-squad playing cover, I don't really get it.
Yeah, I didn't really understand. I didn't really see why he was. I feel
Kovacic makes sense with everything we've talked about and the fact we don't have an outright 8 cover, but yeah, Charlie Ewels when we've got Launchbury, Laws, Itoje, and Cruz.
I am lost. nothing against Charlie Eels. I feel like bringing in that third prop for whichever side needs it could have been more use. Maybe it was
you get Dan Robson or someone in.
Yeah, it was somehow. Maybe it was just a case of that we're not a forward replacement for forward replacement. We want to give a Tojan Cruz a complete week off.
Yeah.
So we need the cover at second row to bring Charlie Eels in. Maybe it's that.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. I think it might be.
I think otherwise it seems like a slightly strange one, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I mean, what do you think of the side? It's an interesting looking one because you've got some real strong class in the mix, and then you've got some slightly less. I think in, but I still think that's a good side. I like the fact that England have produced 3 or 4 variations now, and they all have been reasonably strong. I mean, obviously we saw against Ireland what a pretty much full strength side looks like, and it decimated them with a record winning margin. But I like the fact that these different connotations still look strong.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a question for you, Dan. If you were to pick a Lions 15, I'm not expecting you to do this now, but if you were to pick a Lions 15 without any England players,
yeah,
and they played against an England first 15, how would they get on?
They'd lose.
Who?
Lions.
Of course they'd lose. We obviously think that. Guys, what do you think? I've asked this on Twitter and a few people have... initially, the question was clearly...
For you a new one?
Well, no. Initially, the question was unclear. I didn't ask both parts, so I sort of said, what would your Lions 15 look like now? And then as people started replying, I'd say, and now what would it look like without any of England's first 15 in it? And pretty much every replacement was an England replacement. Everyone kind of took out the ones that they'd initially put in and replaced them with another England player that wasn't considered to be in the first 15, which I thought, was interesting in its own right. But there were a number of people who did say they thought that the Lions would beat the England first 15, and I'm not sure they would, if I'm honest. I mean, England are obviously going to win the World Cup, so they're the best team in the world.
England are a big part of the Lions. I mean, yeah, there's World Cup focus for now, because I think my head's been messed with enough already this week.
Fair enough. Right, well, but before we call time then, just a quick run back through it. So Friday's team, Marler, George, Cole up front, Launchbury and Laws in the row. You got Curry, Wilson and Billy back row, Youngs and Farrell 9-10, Francis and Marchant in the centres, Johnny May, McConaughey out on the wings, Anthony Watson at the back, Cowan, Dickey, Genge, Sinclair covering front row, Charlie Ewells with Matt Kovacic, the other forward cover, and then Hines, George Ford and Big Joe, the backs cover. So we'll see some more big Bosches from Cock-and-Seager rather than Ford. But I think good looking 23. Be interesting to see how they perform against Italy and whether they try anything else new. Expecting big things from Ben Youngs. I think he's the guy who's got the most to prove in that lot. And I have total faith in his ability to do that. Anything you want to add, Daniel?
No, I don't think so. I'm really looking forward to seeing this team play. I can't wait. Actually, I can't wait for Friday.
So I'll leave you with a final question then.
Go for it.
Ireland versus Wales in Ireland.
I think another win for Ireland.
Another win for Ireland. What
is that? Then I believe it puts Ireland as number one team
in the world
going into the World Cup.
And what does it do to Wales? Because obviously we know that being beaten by a team below you in the world rankings is more expensive. Hence what happened to the All Blacks.
Well, yeah, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it puts the All Blacks back at number one. I don't think it puts Ireland. I think if Ireland win, it puts the All Blacks back at number one. I don't know. Wales...
The All Blacks are currently number one.
They are currently. They've moved back to number one, are they? Yeah. I can't remember how the ratings will go.
I think we've established it doesn't matter. The world rankings don't work because England are number one. They're going to win the World Cup and prove it. And really, there's nothing more that needs to be said on that.
Hallelujah.
But Ireland to beat Wales, England to beat Italy. Can't remember who else is playing.
So hang on, I will tell
Scotland, Georgia.
So, Scotland will beat Georgia. Scotland worried. Are any of our guys playing? Are any of as in our guys, meaning any of the guys in our group? So have we got France or Argentina realistically?
No idea. Clearly haven't been doing enough.
Playing, not that I can see now. I can't see either of them playing because it's going to be
the last weekend, right? Most people are flying out to Japan next week.
Yeah, we fly out on Monday, I believe.
So, and I imagine most teams are going to want to get out there
Sunday.
for a week or so before. So yeah, there probably are some other games. We probably should have done some digging. We'll do all that on Twitter. But obviously, we're going to be back Friday night to do the game. So we'll bring, we'll do a bit more research. We'll be a little bit more prepared, and we will cover that off on Friday in our pre-match section. Because of course, it's going to be one of the old semi-lives. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in again. Hope that you continue to enjoy what we're doing here. As always, if you've got questions, advice, suggestions, stories, anything you think we should be covering, anything you think we got completely wrong, we want everyone to get involved. This is everybody's. It's not everybody's pod; it's ours. But we want you guys involved in the process, involved in the journey, as we follow the England boys all the way to the final. At England Rugby Pod on social media, englandrugbypod@gmail.com on email, and rate, review if you haven't done already. They really help us out and gives us something to discuss. And we will catch you on Friday night.
Catch you on Friday.